I think we'll still have more participants joining in. We'll anyway begin since it's 11. I'm Sharnita and I work with the Jobsforher team. A career in freelancing comes with a lot of advantages like flexibility of time and location, an opportunity to follow your passion and make a successful career out of it, and multiple chances to grow due to the multifaceted exposure freelancing gives you. In most times, though everyone is aware of the perks, there's always the question of how and where to begin working as a freelancer. This masterclass is being organized by Jobsforher to help you with that question exactly. Well, I take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Gopal Iyer. Gopal is a seasoned talent leader with over 17 years of experience working with large multinational organizations across various industries and geographies. Currently, Gopal leads the future of work with the specific focus on attracting and engaging with people for gig assignments at EY GDS. He's a speaker in various HR forums and has spoken to numerous topics like the future skills in the world of HR, the future of work, and the rise of the gig economy, the relevance of current skills, and how the business and talent landscape would change by 2025. An Indian Institute of Management alumnus, Gopal is a global professional in human resources, International Coaching Federation, and executive coach. Request you all to please keep yourselves muted and we'll take questions after the session. Over to you, Gopal.
Thank you, Sharnita. I would need you to help me with giving the access to present my screen. I just clicked it twice, it didn't allow.
Okay.
It says,
you have access?
No, it says host disable the participant screen sharing. So maybe I have joined in as participant then?
No, because it says multiple
now it's
participants
done.
can
Yeah.
share screen.
Yeah, now it's done. 1 second. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, brilliant. So thank you, Sharnita and Jobsforher for this wonderful opportunity. It's always a pleasure to be able to interact with talented folks like you all on the call. So would really hope that this session gives you perspectives on what are the tips or what are the things that you need to do if you were to think about freelancing as a career proposition. Would request everyone to go on mute, please, if that's doable. I think there are a lot of people joining in and maybe joining in as, yeah, that's fine. So the idea was for all of us to be able to walk this journey through and walk, probably discuss through what we are seeing in the last 60 to 70 days. How has the landscape of talent changed? What are organizations going through? What are they thinking about? The talent practices, the HR within the organization. What are they thinking? What do they need to do differently? And with all of that, what does it mean for aspirants and job seekers like you all? And how would the world look different in the next few months and going forward? Like, what does Career 2.0 look like? And I think these are some of the perspectives which we are sharing today based on research done by us as well as a few others in the marketplace. But I think the idea for us is to give you the tools and techniques to be able to be ready to become a freelancer as and when you choose to become one.
Yep.
Right. So quickly. we intend to cover these elements today. So I'll walk you through what we are going through right now, the industry 4.0, um, the impact of COVID-19, what are the modern workforce realities with COVID-19 as well, collaborative economy or gig economy, as we all know, and what are some of the things that you need to do differently as you think about careers and rethink around steps that you need to take to become a freelancer, and a bit about what Gig Now, our flagship program, is all about as well. So, I think the last 100 days have been extremely difficult for a lot of us, and I think we are seeing nothing but a massive challenge around us with regards to. I mean, it's a crisis. It's a pandemic that I don't think anyone in the world expected would come, and I think it's just growing as we even speak. I think the numbers overall in the world are somewhat slowing down, but in India, I think the numbers are growing all of a sudden with some bit of relaxations around the lockdowns as well as the travel that has started happening. And what does this mean for us with regards to how does the business happen, how does the work happen, and what are some of the things that we need to do to be able to cope up with the new realities? So, um, is this an economic crisis alone, or is this an health crisis alone? No, it's both, all in one go, right? I mean, I think we, as much as we would want it to relate this to an recession or an economic slowdown to 2008, no, I don't think 2008 is a good enough parallel. I don't think it like a 2000 Y2K challenge was a parallel as well, because we it was restricted in many ways to particular geographies. There were economies that were still doing well during that time, and I think there were economies that were struggling, but I think there was a support system that was available. People were healthy even then. I think today it's a health crisis and an economic crisis all at one go, right? This has had a significant impact on unemployment, and as we see, as we speak through as well, there are reports around in the media about how the organizations are letting go of people for various reasons, cash being one of the important element. Like, do I have the business demand and the cash flow to be able to survive through the situation? And it will continue to uh, grow. I mean, in terms of the job losses, we may see up to 25 million plus jobs being lost through by the end of this entire pandemic, which I think we'll have to see how. And none of us know when is it going to end, if at all we were to say so. Um, what's the impact on the business that we are seeing? I think aviation or cab aggregators or even malls or cinema theaters are all closed in the last 60, 70 days or even beyond. And I don't think even if it were to open up, it will open up to the new world of realities. I think it will be a new normal or a next normal when it comes to people willing to go or going or being ready to be able to take up the travel or take up or going for a movie theater. I mean, this will definitely result into temporary business closures, and we are seeing that happening around. Uh, it is also having a significant impact on loss of customers due to economic slowdown. Um, yeah, I mean, automobile as a classic example. I don't think in the current scenario where we are trying to keep our cash safe, money safe, we would be in a position to invest in something which is a spend rather, right? It's a discretionary spend, and a lot of consumers will hold back themselves on spending on some of these elements. Would this have an impact on the economic activities for those industries? Absolutely, yes. I mean, I don't think apparel is something that will remain the same. With all of us almost working from home now, we rarely would use a blazer or or an formal wear to be able to go to office. I think even if you were to go to office in the new normal, it would be limited at least for the next 6 months till the lockdown restrictions ease out. Um, Lack of demand and lack of supply. I mean, high demand at the end of the day in certain cases, low demand in certain cases, and lack of supply in certain cases, or higher supply in certain cases. And when I say that, it means we all needed groceries in the last 60 days. Were we able to get those on time? Probably. It took us about a week to be able to go and buy groceries or vegetables. So there was a high demand but lack of supply. But in certain cases, when now things, economic activities have opened up, there is a lesser demand for certain things and a high supply availability through all of these aggregators like big baskets or Amazons. And I think they are trying their best to be able to spur the demand in certain cases as well. A lot of organizations were not able to manage work remotely. I mean, some of us, like in EY, we have gone 100% work from home, but there are operational reasons because of which organizations may not able to work from home. Example, any of the manufacturing organizations or any of the government organizations like HAL, where you need physical presence in the office to be able to work. I mean, railways is another example. So there would be an impact on their operations as well, right? Consumptions level have decreased drastically. I just spoke about that. Lower cash flow. A lot of people are struggling with liquidity. Some of them have lost jobs. This has resulted into cash flow situation, and manufacturing is at all-time low due to all of this. And this has also resulted in increase in debts. While all of that is happening with the business, it is directly impacting or indirectly impacting in certain cases the job seekers and employees as well. How are we working with the entire current scenario in the last 60 days? I mean, I think there has been significant shift in the hiring practices. What used to be X number yesterday, today is probably X minus one or X minus two in certain cases. There are hiring freezes in certain cases where we are not able to hire for the lack of demand in certain roles that we would have typically hired. Working from home has become a normal now, a new normal, where we are not working in offices. And I think that will continue to become the new normal, where it will have a significant impact on the way we are working as well, which has resulted in the change of policies, pay structures, and all of that in the coming days to come, right? So just a bit on that for all of you. How has this impacted women? And I think this has come loud and clear even within the framework that we are all part of, including within EY, where I think it was one thing for us, all of us, to say that we will all work from home, but it has put extreme stress on the women at large, including economic stress on families, which has impacted everything around the way the days look. I mean, we could probably think about a 9-day work day, 9-hour work day before, but it's now become 14-hour work day, and it will continue to have an impact on the work-life balance. The element of jobs in itself, given the economic stress that we have, has led to a lot of stress around healthcare and basic amenities and access to basic amenities for especially pregnant and disabled women. And it has had a significant impact on women with domestic abuse by up to 20% during the lockdown. I mean, these are all research that are available in the public domain for all of us to look at how things are going on. So with that, I think pre-COVID decisions on what we would have wanted to do would probably have very little or no relevance to the post-COVID realities. And there will be a new normal, or as some of the research articles suggests, there will be a next normal in the coming days to come. So industrialization has been there for almost several hundred years, and we will continue to look at the evolution in the since the 1784. So we started with mechanization, steam power, weaving loom in 1784. In 1870, it was about mass production, assembly line, cars were produced, electrical energy was produced. We moved on to 1969, 70, where it was all about automation, computers, electronics. And today we are in the world of cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, networks, cloud computing, quantum computing, and all of that. And all of that along with COVID, right? I mean, as of today, as we speak. So, how has this impacted all of us at large? Now, I remember, I think generations ago, if I were to think about my grandmother, both on my paternal side and maternal side, um, they were um, they were predominantly at home. They would probably spend time on pursuing their passion, but predominantly did their basic schooling and stayed at home. My mom, on the other hand, was working for Indian Railways, and she spent about close to 3.5 decades rather in Indian Railways. My wife continues to pursue both her entrepreneurial passion and as well as take care of all the house chores while she has had a successful career in the last 15 years. And I think this is going to continue in the same way, but with industrialization 4.0, the way the jobs have evolved in the last 15, 20 years will continue to offer a lot of opportunities to everybody and including women at large. So with the digitization that has happened, and I think if we were to talk about the probabilities that existed even pre 2010, you always had to go to workplace. You have always had to be in office and get things done because laptops were still very new in many ways. And I think as laptops started becoming new normal, people started having one-off work from home, continue to work on focusing on working while ensuring the balance from a life perspective. And I think today, as we speak, with a lot of things through the Internet of Things being on apps, people have evolved to pick up roles as of through remote working as well. I think due to COVID and digitization across industries, I think we would see a lot of digital roles, which means you don't need access to organizational assets. You could sit anywhere and get the work done through cloud. All you need is a laptop, and as long as you have a personal laptop, you will be able to do that, right? It also has provided us tremendous amount of flexibility to start business with a relatively very small investment, right? I mean, be it the Startup India initiative that the government of India announced 5 years ago, or be it even now in the recent past, the initiatives around self-reliant India. We will continue to see a lot of opportunities where digital landscape will continue to enhance the experience for women entrepreneurs to come in the coming days. We've also seen a lot of leadership increase in the women leadership increase across organizations in the senior management role, and also a lot of women have turned into investing in markets, which I think is a very good sign for us to really look at. So, what would be more important in the future, right? Skill set or mindset? Um, in the past, I think we would always think about ourselves as workers within an organization who could probably work for several years in a particular domain. If in the technology sphere, it could be uh, domain of technology, or it could be in HR, or it could be finance. But we were domain experts predominantly, and we were also thinking more about the number of years of experience that we have had, because that spoke about the depth of the experience that we all had. As we progress to or step into the careers 2.0, or the new journey, or the new ways of working, it's the mindset that is more important, right? At the end of the day, if you were to see how our careers are shaping up in the even in the last 100 days, I think all of what we were doing in the past today probably holds very little relevance. I can use my experience, absolutely, but I think I need to also enhance my skills which requires a very different mindset for us to work towards. So think about how our careers have evolved, right? I can just give a perspective, a story here. As I said, my mom started, or my parents started their journey of working in, probably they were in this quadrant, or this spot, or on site, where I would say, where they had to always work on site. They had to go to office, factories, premises, to get the work done. It was always a need based hiring that used to happen. There was very little flexibility in the way the work was getting done. As the world progressed, and we saw the 1991 economic change that Dr. Manmohan Singh brought in, where it led to a lot of privatization, or a lot of foreign money coming into India, it resulted into a lot of divestitures within the government frameworks, which meant a lot of jobs were lost at that time as well, even in 1991. And people were highly skilled but had to do something for themselves, and they were really looking at how do they make sure that they continue to work and earn money for themselves, and freelancing was possibly the best option that was available. So LIC agents, as one example, I think saw huge spike in the 90s, when a lot of people moved into becoming general insurance agents, or life insurance agents, and looked at all options to freelance through that. Come 2000, when the Y2K challenge happened, suddenly there was a huge bubble that bursted, where there were a lot of people that were hired, but again, due to the bubble burst, a lot of people were laid off. uh, that next 3 years, post 2000, led into a lot of uncertainty around whether the jobs will come back to the way it was pre 2000 in the new world. And I think that was when traditional contracting was brought in, within the services industry as well. But of course, all the factories always had contracts. Even the government machinery always had contracts, and that continued to happen. But in the professional services or services industry, we started seeing a lot of contract jobs coming in, more in numbers, especially after 2000, because we suddenly started seeing a lack of certainty in terms of how the business would run, post the 2000 issue that happened. Um, we are here today in COVID-19, possibly again having a similar effect, but this time around, I think the aspect that all the previous events that I spoke of were only economical or economic crisis. This is economic plus health crisis, which probably puts in a lot of challenge, or poses a lot of challenge with all of us, where we need to really think about how do we want to reimagine our work. Layoffs continue to happen as we speak, and I think with all the recent news that you may be hearing, it's disturbing. But at the same time, it's also an opportunity for every single individual to start really asking himself or herself, is this the right time for them to start up as a gig or a freelancer? And we'll talk more about what freelancing is all about in the next few slides. But why that while that happens, I think one of the things that we are also talking about is, uh, we have also progressed from need-based low flexibility roles to today, where we are, it's remote. We don't really need to go to work or workplace. There may be certain roles, certain days in a month you may still have to go to work, but predominantly most of the work can get done remotely. And the outsourcing that has happened in the last 10 years is a classic example of that. uh, we offer higher flexibility and comfort, and at the same time, the roles have shifted from being experience based, need based, to skill based. So if you're good at writing documents, if you're good at publishing articles, if you're good at a particular technology, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, or SAP or Oracle or DevOps, or if you're good at any of the specific skill, the roles have evolved for you to pick up a gig role even now as we speak. So I think that's something that you may want to really consider. Again, some stats. I think these are some of the research that have happened around the world, which talks about 43% of highly qualified women with children are having leaving careers or off ramping for a period of time. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it happens because of the socioeconomic factors around us, as well as some of the global role definitions of how the roles have been. 45% of women are unable to make a comeback from maternity leave. 54% look for flexibility as a huge benefit while taking up a new job. And you could correct me if any of these numbers are any different as you think through. And 30% of are leaving full-time jobs for gig work due to lack of flexibility and independence. 35% of women are turning into entrepreneurs and establishing their own businesses. So we'll talk a little bit more about both of these in the coming slides. So I think the question then is, do you have the right perspective to achieve your bold ambition, right? If you were to think about how we have typically looked at our careers per se, there was always a safety net if you were to be an employee. There was always continuous income. You had permanency factor, which was there, that was available. You were taken care of by people within the organization for any kind of challenges and life events. While that will continue to happen, while the full-time roles will be there to stay, you will still have potential to become an employee again for a particular organization. Freelancing has becoming a lot more about how can you empower yourself, right? If you had a specific earning potential as an employee within an organization, as a freelancer, imagine yourself being a CEO of your own organization and you being a solopreneur. You don't have people working for you. The potential that you have to do business is multifold. You don't really need to restrict yourself to one particular domain of expertise or one area of expertise or one specific area of work. And I think it's all about building that right perspective to become more bold and achieve the bold ambitions. And we'll talk about a little bit of that in the coming slides in terms of how you could do that. But a bit of collaborative economy, you all would have heard in some form or the other the word gig economy. And I think mostly resonates the with elements like Ola, Uber, Swiggy, Zomatos of the world. But gig economy is also being applied to white collar jobs now. Like people like you and I can also be gig workers and find short term gigs within the organizations that we are working for. Sharing economy, I think, is more about the elements of sharing out assets. For example, I could probably Airbnb is a classic example. I have a house, I'm sharing it for people to come in and stay. Platform economy is nothing but, again, anything which is based on the platform, which Swiggy and Zomatos are classic examples of that. Crowd economy is if you build an idea, you put it out in the crowd, people will solve the problem for you, and it's mutually beneficial for both the parties. And peer-to-peer economy is where individuals directly transact with business or cooperate in production with each other with little or no intermediation by parties. A classic example is, I don't know if you have seen this, but if you take any biscuit packet today, you would see that the manufacturer is someone else and the seller is someone else. So sellers could be Parleys and Britannias of the world, but the manufacturer could be a small unit sitting elsewhere. And how have they grown into becoming the partners for these organizations is a classic story for all of us to really learn from. And all of these really employ freelancers, gig workers, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and you could be any of these as you think about your journey beyond in the current scenario. So why is gig economy shaping up in India, right? I think it's more to do with. I mean, so this was not a COVID-driven situation, right? Gig started sometime in, I think, as I said in my earlier slides, even in as early as 2000s. So it's almost about 20 years old now. And 2008, 2010 just amplified the usage. 3G, 4G connections, app development, as the mobile technology improved, like with iOS and Androids becoming a lot more stronger, app-based solutions started becoming the new norm. Internet of Things became the way the businesses were run and people sold their services. Excuse me. And you will continue to look at that as the way to for the gig to have grown in the last several years, right? And it will continue to grow even in the future with a lot of these pushes from the governments, like be it Startup India, be it the element of the mindset that we all have today with having to go to work and spend about 3 to 5 hours in traveling, rather than that sitting at home and getting things done at the comfort. And I think a lot of that factors come in shaping up the gig economy the way it is today. And I think it will just continue to grow even more, better for people like you and I to look at roles within the organizations on gig. There are a lot of freelancing platforms that have grown in the last 5 to 8 years. And I think our own platform, which is gignow.com, is one such example. There's a lot of automation that's happening as a result of as a result that will impact the roles changing and gigs being the new normal. And I think it will benefit individuals at the end of the day for doing remote work. They have less financial instability, as much as it may sound that, you know what, I don't have guarantee of salary, but think about it as ways to earn a lot more income any which ways. I think it gives you a lot more financial stability, and you're not really restricted by quote unquote jobs, right? You could probably one second. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we
Okay,
can hear you.
sorry, there was a power cut, and my USB got disconnected. So, so I think this will continue to impact the world of work that we are all part of. It's beneficial for both individuals and companies. There is a cost advantage for companies. There is also element on reducing the costs through indirect expenses, like not having to really spend on seats for employees. And of course, it doesn't impact or affect my business operations. And COVID has just proven that even if you're working from home, I think it's absolutely working well for everybody, right? So who is a gig worker, right? Anyone who could be working with us on a non-permanent basis. It could be freelancers, it could be niche professionals, it could be women predominantly who would want to work with us on a short-term flexible engagement or a project. Mostly, I think we've seen women post maternity would want to come back to work, but I think the fact that they wouldn't want to commit on a full time job, which requires you to spend at least 10 to 12 hours a day, discourages them from looking at options for the organization. I think gig work is a classic example how you can still continue to give justice to the skills and the experiences that you've had by engaging yourself only for limited time in a day. So you could pick up a gig for 5 to 6 hours in a day and still continue to pursue your other passions or focus on the house shows that you may have, or even otherwise. I mean, you could do anything that you may want to do with the remaining time. So flexibility is one key element. Independent professionals are gig workers. Temporary contract workers are gig workers. Interns who would want to join us on a flexi time internship, and people with disabilities or neurodiverse talent are gig workers as well. So how does it help you? I mean, what is beneficial for all of us? It gives you a tremendous amount of autonomy, right? It helps you develop new skill sets. You control the workload. You have the say in terms of the quality of work. You can define the quality of work, mutually agree with the organization that you're working for. You have a control on income. You quote the price point that you would want to sell your services for. You have the work-life balance at the end of the day. It gives you tremendous empowerment. It gives you tremendous financial stability where you are able to set competitive rates. You make your own work schedule. You create your own budget and work through that. And it gives you phenomenal work-life balance at the end of the day. You work through the set schedule, set aside work time, designate a workspace, and I think you are able to find what you needed by being a gig worker at the end of the day, that you probably would have not had the luxury to be able to find in a traditional full-time job. Of course, a lot of organizations in the next few years, including EY, will move towards bridging the gap and work towards addressing all of these elements for everybody. But you would still have the option to do a 6-hour gig for an organization, and how you could do that effectively even now, as you may be waiting for better opportunities in the future to open up, is something that for all of us to really think through and work towards. So the future of work, I think 61% of women gig workers would like to make gig work their full-time career. And I think gig work could be anything around looking at a short-term gig or your own venture. So you could probably think about your own venture being like my wife does Zumba classes, and I think she does phenomenal in terms of working out only 3 days a week for the classes. She earns the fees for the work that she does, and I think that's a control that she has on managing her own career as a Zumba teacher. Likewise, I think you could also define your own boundaries around what becomes your full-time gig career. 43% professionals would like freelancing, example Upwork, 99 Designs, Gig Now. 32% do direct selling, and 30% through the service platforms. And I think you would continue to see a lot of evolution. Again, as I spoke through, the Internet of Things driving the way forward for all of us. So how do you transition from the full-time to a gig work mindset? You may have been working in an organization, or you're working for an organization, you're contemplating a career change to become a gig worker in the near future. You may want to also think about what you would want to do if you were to start a gig work or a gig role tomorrow. So most importantly, understand what's involved in the gig. And gig could be an opportunity that you create for yourself, or the organization gives you. Ensure you manage your time to work and work from home remotely really well. Plan your technology and workspace. So invest in a good laptop, the internet connections and all of that. Keep a track of the income. Salary slip is easy to track and understand what it means. But when you're working for multiple roles across the organization, or your income is staggered, where you work today and you get paid by end of 45th day, it's extremely important. Can you please put everybody on mute, please? Sharda, can I request you to do that?
Doing that. Give me a minute.
Thank you so much. I think it's Navyashri. That's
Yes, done.
Yeah, cool. So keep a track of the income. We all in the corporate lives have the luxury of health insurance, which is a great asset. When you're on your own, you may not have insurance, so buy a health insurance for yourself, which is extremely important to take care of any health related incidental expenses, especially in times like these. It's very important to keep that in mind. Prioritize the work accordingly, and start connecting with influential people who can make introductions and referrals for you. How do you earn the work is purely based on the networking that you have done, or you would do now in the next few days as we work through. And I'll talk a little bit more on the importance of networking in the next few slides. So how can the experience change unlock the extraordinary? Ask yourself, be selective and be focused on the opportunities. Ask yourself questions like, what are my options, right? What are the jobs that are available? What types of openings can I apply for? Where can I add value? What can I do differently? Like, adding value is almost non-negotiable now. If we think about ourselves as working in an organization where we are just doing our jobs without adding any value, I think it's extremely important for all of us to think through that, how we could do everything differently by adding a lot of value for the work that we do. What can I offer as my service, or which company can I offer my services to? Very similar to how you were to plan your next job hunt. So you need to keep that in mind to create an entire network of people who could probably come and want your services. So how do you have an uh, prospecting done for the kind of organizations who you would want to work with? What job roles am I equipped to handle? Um, to other than what I do. So, for example, if you may be a phenomenal HR professional, but the next gig that you may be getting is going to be around strategy. Are you going to be able to pick up that gig? Probably not. So you need to really know what are you good at and what kind of roles could you now equip yourself to perform better in the next few months or years that you're working with. Whom should you connect with? Again, importance of networking that we just spoke through, and I'll give you more perspectives on this in the next few slides. So most importantly, I think it's the element of reimagine, reinvent, and reinforce. Right? We've always thought about our careers in a specific manner. Have you thought about a career which is freelancing? This requires a tremendous amount of reimagination. So setting the right expectations, creative thinking, and repositioning of the entire proposition is extremely important. Reinvent yourself. I think redesign your career pathways to look at roles beyond traditional full-time jobs as well. In the coming few months, coming few years, if this becomes the normal, or it becomes a hybrid model where you always have full-time jobs and you will have gig roles as well, you got to reinforce yourself. If you whatever path you choose in the next 60 to 100 days or 180 days, has to be something that is going to be for a long haul. Uh, would you want to continue working as a freelancer even in the best of the days? I think it's something that will require tremendous amount of reinforcement, and that's what something that we need to work towards. um, so how do you establish yourself successfully as a freelancer? um, Very similar to working as a worker, I mean, as a employee of any organization, but there are certain elements that are extremely important and very important to be called out for all of us in the current scenario as well. Set measurable goals. Without a goal, it will not work, right? I mean, you need to know what are you going to do by when. So it should be a smart goal that you're putting in, which is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. But without a goal, you may not really start going anywhere, right? I mean, goal is like buying a ticket and then starting a journey. Personal branding, again, is extremely important. What do you want to be known as? Who you are? I mean, what do you do? What services do you offer? That's a personal brand element that you would want to create for yourself. And we'll talk about a bit of branding as well in the next few slides. Start figuring out your buyer personas. Who's your customer? Who's going to buy the services from you? Who's going to be working with you? Which organizations would be offering you gig roles? Where all can you market your services? Can you market your services if at all, or can you only talk about it in specific forums? There are certain jobs which doesn't allow you to market your services. So think about that. Excuse me, a little bit. Create and maintain online presence. It's almost inevitable that for all of us, if we would really think about life without being online. I mean, 100 days ago, I would probably do almost 90% of my meetings face to face. And the fact that a possibility of this webinar also wouldn't have existed 100 days ago. But today it's possible because of the platforms like Zoom, Teams, and several other collaborative platforms. Extremely important for all of us to create and maintain an online presence, for people to know who you are and what value do you bring onto the table. LinkedIn is phenomenal platform for all of us to be absolutely be there and do great amount of work for people to know you. There could be several other platforms, including Jobsforher, where you can also create your online eminence and presence. Network. It's a no-brainer that any opportunity is for anyone who has about 15 plus years of experience is based on network. How many people know you for the work that you have done? Are you in touch with the managers that you worked with, with them in the past? Are you in touch with the school, college alumni? You never know who is going to come in and help you find your next gig or next role. So network, build your eminence is, I think, the key to the success. Um, just about the few elements on being skilled in craftsmanship. Craftsmanship was something, as the photograph really tells the story, was something that was always there in the past. I would say in the 1960s and 70s, where we would do a lot of work which was handcrafted, handicrafts. Looms or machinery or automation probably took that away, and I think we started automating everything that was happening, including making of saris or making of anything around the elements of being it pottery, being handicrafts and all of that. Today with automation, yet the element of craftsmanship is coming back, only with a view, how could you differentiate yourself from someone else doing something similar, right? And that's where craftsmanship is coming back. Again, being skilled is extremely important. Everybody knows archery, hypothetically. Who's the best guy or a girl who's going to get the arch to the bullseye? Like, are you really being able to put the arrow onto the bullseye? That's what differentiates you between several others who are crafty as well as skilled like you. Some of the skills of future that you may want to see through, this is based on the World Economic Forum report, which is the times that we're living in are complex, and the problems that we have are very, very complex, and we need to have someone who could solve these complex problems for us. This requires a definite amount of social skills. You need to be able to go to you need to be able to socialize even virtually, being able to solve the problems, or solve the narratives socially, on several of the platforms that are available. You have great amount of project management skills, technical skills, cognitive skills, empathy being one of the most important things today that we need. Are we able to really understand what people are going through? Um, uh, I've seen a lot of people uh, typically associate with others through any of the online platforms, just to ask help, right? Asking help is absolutely okay. We all would be more than happy to help, but are we really asking this other individual, how is she, or how is he or she feeling? Are they doing well? And before even we try to sell our product or services, just have that bit of empathy to be able to know whether this person is doing well, right? So I think that's extremely important. Leadership skills, listening, most importantly. Are we able to listen to people for the problems that they are able to share, some of the things that they are not able to share as well? So how do we work through that in the complex world that we're currently living in? A bit on personal branding, right? I spoke about that in the couple of slides earlier. Extremely important to have personal brand. And 7 elements of personal brand are authenticity. Are you authentic? Are you talking about services? Are you pitching for services? And are you being truly authentic in being able to provide that services? How unique are you? Why would someone want to work with you versus someone else? What expertise do you have? Are you able to share that expertise through the work that you do? How visible are you? Are you able to create visibility for yourself through the work that you have done? What is the image that you've created for yourself? How are you able to communicate? Are you able to articulate well? Are you able to share the perspectives to and solve the problems that the client brings onto the table? Or are you trying to only keep the solutions to what you think the client needs? Do you have the right credibility at the end of the day in the market? And do you have the social media presence for people to find you, people to know who you are, what you do, and how you can be of help for them? Why should you build credibility? Why should you establish credibility? It goes back to the simple thing, right? We always had an Ola or an Uber. We always had a Zomato and a Swiggy. we always had many other such parallels like an Indigo and a Vistara or Indigo and Jet. Why do we choose one brand over the other? It's at the end of the day the credibility of the brand that speaks for themselves, right? Are you trustworthy? Are you competent? Are you consistent? Right? I mean, if I were to talk about airlines which consistently cancels flights, I would probably not book my ticket next time around in that particular airline. Would go for someone who's more dependable. Is someone, are you genuine? Are you sincere? Right? Are you respectful of the customers that work with you? Do you take accountability for the work that you've done are doing? Are you honest at the end of the day? And are you principled? These are the ways that you can build your credibility in the market. And as you start your journey of becoming a freelancer, it's extremely important because the feedback that you get for doing a particular gig is what is going to get you the next gig, is what is going to get you the next freelancing opportunity. Think about something very similar, right? I mean, we all hire photographers for any of the functions that we have at homes. Who do we typically hire? Who we would have really had some good feedback about from. So we would ask some of our relatives for anyone if they know, and ask them if they did a good job, and then the guy ends up getting the assignment. And I think that's what is the need of the hour. How are we building our credibility for us to be able to get our next assignment, right? Just a bit of online presence and its importance. I think from a from a mindset of getting our next job as an employee, CVs was always the most important thing that people spoke about. With the online presence being so important, I think most of the organizations today look at social screenings of your Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta profiles. Most of them look for background verifications through references and reference checks. Most of them look at what are you posting on these to understand what are your thought process, etc. This is replacing the traditional sourcing strategies. And I think it's extremely important for you to also think about this, even as a freelancer, because I would really look at whether do you have a website of your own? Do you have a business account with LinkedIn or business account with Facebook where you have posted about the work that you have done, some testimonials of the work that you've done, some really interesting facts about the kind of business you're in, some of the really interesting research reports that you've published on challenging assignments that you've picked up, and all of that I think is extremely important for you to really think through as you're building your online presence, because I think that's what is going to help you end up getting your next big gig. Solopreneurship. Um, any of these freelancers, thought leaders, makers, or agents could be a solopreneur. When you start your entrepreneurial journey, you don't need to really hire people for them to work with you. You could start on your own. It's a very simple process, and I think the government of India has done phenomenal job in the last several years to be able to make the process of registering yourself as an entity very easy. And I think you should probably explore options through, I mean, there are tons of material available on Startup India government website itself, where you can go and find how to become a freelancer or a solopreneur. But I think it's extremely important why we need to take that path and why it is here to stay. And I think we spoke about the benefits for both individuals and companies for looking at freelancers, and it's gonna just make it more important as we move along. Um, a bit of important must-haves for gig workers or freelancers or solopreneurs. We spoke about goals, extremely important for all of us to have goals. But more importantly, if you're into or getting into a kind of solopreneurship which requires you to position yourself slightly differently, you need to have a business document, right? Business vision and a strategy document. What are you doing? I mean, what are you doing, or which services are you going to be offering, right? Are you thinking about setting up a shop which is into HR consulting? What organizations would you be working with? What is the strategy that you have to win more clients? Are you going to be only restricted to India, or are you going to offer cross-border services? Are you going to be working with only Fortune 500 companies, or are you going to be working with any of the startups? It's important that you know that and start putting that together in a document that you can start looking at as you move along through this journey. Forecast the business. And I know it's very difficult in the current scheme of things where we are currently, but I think some bit of forecast really helps, because it's the element of, you know what, I'm going onto the field to score a century. Unless and until I have that in my mind, I wouldn't even start scoring, right? So it's important for you to have a forecast. Create a pitch deck, or a portfolio of who you are, what services do you offer. Create a elevator pitch. Speak about what you do in the smallest possible fashion in like 30 seconds. Let that be on your website, let that be on your Facebook page, let that be on your LinkedIn profile, to say for people to understand who you are. That's going to be the new norm. I'm more interested to hear you through any of the digital platforms first, before even getting to the element of looking at your CV and interviewing you. Create an online presence. We spoke about that at length. Gather reviews and testimonials. Again, we spoke about all of this at length as well. Again, simple example. At the end of every ride that we used to take, I would rather say, in the pre-COVID era with Uber, the driver used to say, or even Ola, he used to say that, give me a 5-star rating, because that's the rating that would end up getting them the next ride, right? And I think that's more important in the new world of work as well. So how do we become a little bit more smarter? It's okay for you to ask for recommendation. It's okay for you to ask for testimonials, because that's what is going to get you the next possible gig. Bit about Gig Now. So Gig Now is EY's flagship program, where we tap into people with various skill sets, and opportunities could be anywhere for 45 days up to 6 months. People can register on gignow.com, and put in their CVs and profiles. If there is a role that is available, we would definitely reach out to you. But it's more like being there on the platform to kind of get eligible for roles, and you would be notified for any of the roles that may come in the near future, as we start looking for skilled positions. Why and how does Gig Now help you as a program? It gives you an element of independence. It gives you a fantastic opportunity to create your own identity. You can work with us on really client problems and solutions that you may want to work through. You could share knowledge with people on the team. You would be covered through all the social security benefits and insurance. You could also be part of any of the initiatives that we have around giving back to the society. And I think, as I've always kept saying this, whoever I've spoken to, my entire team is gig, and they have all been working closely with me on this journey. And I think some bit of that comes through a lot of great work that they have been doing, even as gig. I have never differentiated them, and I think that's going to be the new normal. How can I work as a leader to build a world-class hybrid team which has experienced professionals who are full-timers as well as gig workers, and you don't really make out the difference at all if you speak to someone. Just spoke about this as well, and that's pretty much that I had today to share. I hope I did well on time. I'm open to take any questions that might have come in.
Hi, this is Padmavati from Bangalore. That's a very good presentation, and I get a lot of insights on gig and stuff. And the way you put up the deck, the way you communicated the points were all too impressive. Thank you. Yeah, may I have a short introduction about you?
Sure. So I lead the gig program for EY. Work with them in the Bangalore office, and I think that's what I do.
Hi, Gopal. Vijaya here.
Yeah, Vijaya.
Yeah, it was really a very good session. I'm
Thank you.
glad I gotten a opportunity to attend this. I have a two-part question. All through the presentation, you mentioned you have to excel in whatever you do. Right. But we are aware and we know that there are a lot of mediocres. There are people. And in one of the surveys, what I have seen, they say that mediocres, they tend to work really hard and they can be much better than the people who are really good at their work. So, is there any initiative which you could help these mediocres to be pushed into the next expertise level, and how would you take? And I'm not afraid to say that I'm a mediocre as well, so how I should push myself, and work wise I'm the best, but how to push ourselves and make sure we are visible to the world? If you could help me with that. Thank you.
Sure, Vijaya. I think I shared quite a bit of tips in my slide as well on what you could do differently. I think key element is um, you may be mediocre, you may be a really hard worker, you may be a smart worker, you may be a phenomenal top rank holder. At the end of the day, opportunities that come to us are all going to be the same, right? I mean, I don't think opportunities are given to anyone any differently. How best we could make use of that is something for all of us to really think through and work towards. Now, the question of mediocrity, or this is who I am, um, goes back to the element of the transitions that we need to make in with the changing times to the new realities, right? Uh, when test matches were played and when ODI came in, people were not ready to transition. People said no, we wouldn't transition. We would be happy to play test matches, and then suddenly came in ODI. ODI got a lot of funding, and they started playing a lot more one-day internationals. All of a sudden, um, uh, we had 2020 matches, and we now know what sells the best, right? Similar example is Nokia. So when mobile industry started, Nokia dominated, right? Dominated almost about 10 years. Do we even have a single handset being sold today? Probably. There is a research article on what happened and why Nokia couldn't go further. Similar example, there are other case studies like Kodak. Kodak was one of the best cameras and filmmakers at one point of time. With Nikon and digital camera, where are they today? I think all of us need to really think through. So we need to understand that the customers, we are all at the end of the day products. We are all at the end of the day services for the customers that are buying our services. And in some cases, it's employers, and in some cases, it's going to be the clients that would be working with us. And we need to do our best to be able to serve them in whatever way we can. And I think it's important that we transition to the new realities and the new rules of the game. And if it requires you to be saying a few things differently, by staying true to who you are, by being more visible in the digital platform, by networking a lot more with people across in the world, I think that's the realities that we all need to work towards. And I think that's what all of us should be doing. While being mediocre is absolutely okay, but the client expects you to be the best. And I think uh, imagine just for a moment if you were to walk into any store for buying any product, and the salesman comes and tells you that, you know what, don't buy this product, it's a mediocre product. Would you even appreciate that? So I think same holds good for us. I think we all need to realize that we need to be considering ourselves in the current times as products ourselves and services ourselves. How would we be positioned in the market is something that we need to work towards. Not everybody is great with it. We need to work towards that, and I'm sure everybody can do it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Gopal.
Gopal, I have a few questions on my chat window as well.
Yeah.
I would like to read out because I'm sure you're not able to see it. Is freelancing a lucrative career? Which field offers the best compensation for freelance work?
Which field?
Yeah,
That's
which field offers the best compensation for freelance work?
so freelancing absolutely is more lucrative. Whoever I have spoken to about on freelancing, when they really sit down and do the math, do the entire business proposition for themselves, the earning potentials that they have on freelancing is a lot more. Which field? I think I don't know what's the background of this individual who's asked this question, but I think if he or she is a fresher, then I think anything to do with digital would really help. But if this is someone who is really having a lot of experience already, just converting that experience into a freelancing proposition is going to be the best thing to do. Does that help? I mean, I don't know if there is a follow up.
Hello. Well, this is Rajeshri here.
Yeah.
On the second last PPT slide, you shared email ID. I'm sorry I missed it. Is it possible to share that slide once again? And also, I want to know how I can start or how I can contribute in the gig um, thing in EY.
You could register on gignow.com.
Okay.
And I think if there is, and it's a very simple process, and if there is a particular role, our team will reach out to you, and we can take it from there. So it's gignow.com.
Sure. Many thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the wonderful presentation, Gopal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and Gopal, we have another one from Indu, and she says, I don't have any specialization. I worked in the back end profile for about 5 years and then went on a break for 7 years. Can I do this as out of current technology skill set? Don't really. Yeah, this
You
is
may
what
need.
she asked.
So
Yeah.
I understand. I think you may need a bit of reskilling. You may want to look at what are the top skills that are available or needed in the market today. Pick up some of the trainings from Udemy or Coursera or Upgrads. I think anything to do with digital marketing, data analytics, data visualization, um, anything that helps you tell your story better is going to be a good one for you to look at, being able to leverage. And I think you should look at reskilling first for the next couple of months, and then of course the landscape is quite wide open for you to pick up any of the roles that are available.
Yes, another one. Do I need to have special skills or certifications to become a freelancer?
Special skills, no. It could be the skills that you're working or proficient in. So it's all about converting whoever you are whoever you are as an individual to become a freelancer based on the skills you have. And certifications, absolutely. Look for what certifications are valuable for the background and the experience that you have. So, for example, if you're an HR professional, look at it, certifications around HR professional that gives you a good view of what global HR practices are. Or if you're a technology professionals, look at what certifications holds value in your area of expertise. It could be SAP, Oracle, or any of those. So I mean, purely depends on what background you are from.
So the next one comes from Manaswi.
Mm-hmm.
She asks, I'm a student graduating in 2020 as an IT engineer. What are the opportunities out there for me? How do I start?
So it's I know I think all the students are extremely anxious with all that's happening, and I would continue to keep telling them, then do not lose hopes. The opportunities will come. Opportunities are there. It will continue to evolve through. IT engineer, I think you may still look at some of the roles that may be available through gigs or internships that you can pick up. Um, Pick up volunteering opportunities to begin with if you're not finding anything right now. I think for the next 3 to 4 months, there will be a bit of uncertainty for organizations to look at onboarding any of these professionals, not because they don't want to. It's purely to do with all that's happening around the ecosystem of the lockdowns and the fact that none of the universities, almost whoever we have spoken to, have been able to conduct their final exams. So it's an extremely uncertain world right now. But do not lose hope. Continue to look for opportunities. You don't need to. You could still do a gig role even without completing your exams. The question is, when the exam happens, how do you find the balance to take leave and complete your exams and certifications? So look at that. There are tons of websites that are available, including Gig Now, which is ours. You can look for opportunities there, wherever you think you will be able to add value with the background and experience and skills that you have. Absolutely. You have an opportunity as well that you can really now start thinking about which industry do you want to focus. And between industries that we are talking about, I think if there is an industry that's going to be of extremely high importance for anyone, that's going to be essentials, and which could include your medicines, pharma, and anything to do with production of masks or any of those. So anything around internship opportunities in essential segment would really be of a great start for you.
Hi Gopal, this is Naina.
Yeah, Naina.
I have a question that do we have to register as a freelancer in per se according to the Indian rules, and do the companies consider while hiring a gig or something like that if we have a registered number or something like that?
So there are two ways that you can get, I would say, get signed up as a gig. One as an fixed term employee, which could be like you would have an end date to the contract. So you join in for 6 months and so on. That doesn't require any great amount of registrations per se. The other way is if you're really a seasoned professional, would want to start up on your own as a solopreneur, you may want to register yourself through the registration process. And as I said, go to startupindia.gov.in. You would get the entire framework on how do you want to register. Simple things like GST setup, PAN, Aadhaar, Udyog Aadhaar, I meant. All of that takes about 15 to 20 days for all of that to be set up. And then you can come to any of the organizations and say that you're coming in here as a consultant. This is how you would want to sell your services, and this is your rate card, and negotiate on the rate card and get the assignment. And those assignments could be time bound, it could be case based, it could be outcome based, and all of that. So there are multiple paths that you can take. That's the flexibility that gig offers you, which probably employment never offered you. So I think you should probably look at, you have to decide which one suits you the best.
Thanks, Gopal.
Hi Gopal, can you please shed some light on management roles with gig now that it has been remote? So I am actually a 15-year experienced professional. I was based out of HCL Technologies. I was mostly into management. Can you shed some light on this?
Which area of management?
I was into project management and test management, both.
Project and risk?
Test
management. Okay. So again, I think both have bright future, right? And I think the ways project were managed in the past were always you would probably go in as an employee and manage projects after project for the same organization, one after the other. Excuse me. You could now look at doing projects for multiple organizations as a consultant. And look for freelancing sites. There are many such sites like Topcoder, Kaggle, Upwork, freelance.com, freelancer.com, and Gig Now, of course, where there would always be project management roles that could be available, where you could do projects out of that. Test, of course, is a phenomenal area of opportunity. Everybody wants that capability. Qualtrics is another such example where you could look at registering yourself as a freelancer. And I think I think one thing I would say, all of us with anything more than 10 plus years of experience on this call today have to really realize is it's not the number of years of experience that would count now. It's more of the proficiency of the skill that would count now. So if you have a proficiency on project management as a skill, if you have a proficiency on testing as a skill, uh, that is what is going to be monetized, and you define your rate card accordingly, right? Unlike in the employment area where you would quote a figure based on the number of years of experience, that's just going to go away. I mean, it's going to be pretty soon a history in the next 5 to 10 years. It will be price point based role compensation, I would say, going forward. I mean, this is my view, and I think there are a lot of research articles available for you to read through this as well.
Hi, Gopal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Priyanka.
Yeah, Priyanka.
Okay, so a very interesting conversation, and I will reach out to you and in a more appropriate manner, not this. But my question would also revolve around part two, when I would like to understand how does the screening mechanism work for the gig economy, or at least for gig now, if you can speak more about that. So it's so the point that I'm also trying to raise, which applies to not just gig workers but otherwise, is that a lot of people just get lost because we are just so many of us. So you can do all the checkoff lists on every slide, and you can still kind of not find your way forward. So would you want to talk more about that?
So I would say selling is extremely important as a gig worker, right? You got to sell the job, sell the service to the customers who are willing to buy. Unlike as an employee, you would just apply to jobs and wait for things to happen. And the problem of plenty is impacting people at large any which ways. And I think with any such events like pandemics that we're going through right now, it's just going to get a lot more critical for us to realize, how do we want to position ourselves? Networking comes to play here. Know people who can be of influence. Talk to people. If there are roles that are available that you can think of or you see in any particular site, keep researching, right? I mean, it's extremely important for you to keep researching on where you can find the opportunity. If there are people who you know work in that organization, work in that startup, work in that MSME, talk to them and find out if there is a way that you can collaborate. Let price point not be a point of factor, right? I mean, you gotta be hungry to pick up that first, second, third assignment for you to build your name if you're starting your career as a freelancer now. And I think as you do that, you will progress a lot more in terms of how you would take this forward, because by then you would have built your name and credibility in the industry. So I would just say that, and I think if we can definitely discuss a lot more one-on-one, if that helps.
Great, thank you. That's very kind of you.
Sure.
Hello.
Yes, Meenakshi.
Hi, Gopal. This is Meenakshi. Actually,
Yeah,
my question is.
I'm not able to hear you clearly, so.
Hello.
Maybe.
Am I audible?
Yes, hello? Yes. Yeah.
Just a second. Am I audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
Actually, Gopal, my question is, I'm an HR professional around 5+ years of experience, and currently I'm on a maternity break. So from last 3 months actually. Mm-hmm. So what do you think, according to you, with regards to the gig workers, what are the opportunities for me as an HR professional, as HR generalist, or as a gig, or any other opportunity for HR professional? Because when I was there, I was searching for the freelancing in HR. There is no any work I'm able to find for freelancing as an HR.
So I think any role which is within the non-revenue generating field, which an HR, finance, enterprise technology, or all of that are gonna be looked at as a classic view for crowdsourcing, right? So can you break your role down into multiple chunks? So define what your typical day in the role look like, right? Put down those 10, 15, 20 line items. rate your proficiency against each of the line items, and that will give you a fair idea on what is it that you would want to look for in your next gig. So for example, as an HR business partner, if your focus had been working closely on attrition management, or working closely on building strategies for new business setups, or working on some of the new initiatives within the organization for compensation on benefits, I think those will be then targeted roles that you can look at. I think you need to further specialize. So you got to move from vertical growth to horizontal growth for now, to see what other aspects of HR that you can pick up and be known for, and then become a freelancer through that.
Okay, then for this, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Then in which skill I have to adopt, or is there any certification needed for the same? If I want to choose for the compensation and benefits, then what kind of certification I need to do?
So Meenakshi, we can connect one-on-one on that. If you can, feel free to write to
Okay.
me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I think
Okay, sure.
it's best for me to know more about you to be able to guide you better.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello. Hi, Gopal. Rachita here.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Not that loudly. Maybe the mouthpiece is a little far.
Now?
No.
Is it better?
No.
Just one moment. Hello.
Yeah.
Now?
Much better. Yes.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask is, I'm looking for a new career direction. So does Gig Now, really offer some internships for people like me?
I would need to know more about your experience and background, Rachita.
Yeah,
So why don't you do this? Register on Gig Now.
Yeah.
I'll have one of my team members speak to you,
Okay.
and we can take it from there.
Perfect. Yeah, not a problem. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
I think we're done with questions.
Awesome.
Can we? I will give it like 2 seconds and then probably wind up since we've passed 12:15.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
One question.
Yeah, one last question for the day.
Yeah. Gopal, I had a question that I'm just new to Gig Now. I haven't looked at it. So I just wanted to know Gig Now is for any area, any technology or non-technical space. It covers both.
So GigNow is our platform for EY, and we typically would post roles which are relevant for EY. And for you to know more about what EY does, I think do some research on what EY is into, and of course you will know what kind of roles we would have in GDS and even in EY India. And of course, if there is a match that we have, you will get a call from us to be able to look at any.
So being in technical space also, I mean, Gig Now is okay to start with.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like your. It's just our way of reaching out to the community at large to get them on roles that are open for EY.
Okay, I get that. Okay, yeah, because I just wanted to know how to just break. I've been like going through the website, Freelancer, Upwork, and all that. But then how to actually start up, so if that also helps, I mean, there will be many channels and we'll have to apply everywhere and try to
Sure,
understand
absolutely. I mean, I think you will have to.
all the channels.
So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, I think Gopal, thanks for a wonderful session and helping
Thank
us
you so
understand
much.
collaborative economy and how gig is shaping up with details of how it's beneficial and the future of gig work, and how we can transition from full-time work to establish ourselves successfully as a freelancer. I would like to thank all of you for having attended this masterclass, and I hope that you'll have some essential points that you can use while you start work as a freelancer. Thank you very much, Gopal.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Sharnita and Jobsforher. Sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll definitely share the recording
Sure.
of the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.